it's much harder to take the stuff out that's poisoning you than to add in the good stuff. And
Yeah.
it's much easier to tell someone to take a supplement or herb or whatever than tell them, hey, no, you actually have to stop doing what you're doing.
When it comes to conversations about health, I think we're quick to dismiss people who don't meet eye to eye with us on every single issue. But something you may not know about me is that there is no guest I have ever had in the history of this podcast where we agree on absolutely every single point. And I don't think there ever will be. So today I wanted to bring on Dr. Vincent Esposito. And while we might have very different ideas of what a healthy diet looks like, we absolutely see eye to eye on things like antibiotics, questioning the narrative around estrogen, and what it means to take personal accountability for your health. So I'm really excited to share today's episode with you, and I hope you enjoy it. I am so excited to have a guest here today that I've actually been following online for a couple of years, and it's been recommended to me a couple of times to interview him here. So welcome to the show. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and tell people about you.
Yeah. Sarah, thanks for having me on. So my background is not as probably dramatic, I would take it, as probably some of your guests going into this route, this life path. And in some ways, I guess I'm fortunate, and this is probably something we could cover as we go. I grew up a honestly relatively healthy kid, especially relative to friends and teammates I had growing up. I never really missed like school for being sick or anything like that. I really actually didn't have any major health problems that I can even think of up until I went to college. I went away. I left home. And part of that might be due to just, I think, my upbringing with my parents. Like my father is a chiropractor, my mom is a dentist. So they were in like the health space. I've gotten two different stories from both of them, so I actually don't know to what degree I was on the vaccine schedule at the time. I know it's not the full one. I just don't know what it is. I haven't really spent too much time looking into it because honestly, I can't change it. So I just kind of kept it moving.
I feel like you're probably closer to my age where we didn't really get a ton of vaccines, period, right?
So I was born in 92. So
oh wow. Okay. So I'm a lot older than you. Never mind.
So I don't remember exactly what it was in 92. I have to go back and look, but it's definitely not, 76 doses of 17 or whatever it is now, adding the COVID one on. So anyway, breathe it as it may. I go away to college. I'm playing baseball, and within like the first 18 months or so, I put on like 25 pounds. And in my infinite wisdom, I actually worked at the gym. So one of the reasons I ended up going to chiropractic school was because I worked for the strength and conditioning coach as basically like an assistant trainer, as that's just kind of what I did as a job. So I was there a lot. I was working out a lot. Like I said, I put on a lot of weight in about 18 months. In my infinite wisdom at the time, I thought I was just all muscle mass and like I'm getting bigger or whatever. And I'm not like a big guy. I'm 5'9", 5'10", and I got up to like 190, 195. Again, wasn't like fat or anything, but it was, bigger. But I didn't like feel great. I never drank coffee before I went to college. And I was always someone who took morning classes. So I started doing that because I was having trouble kind of getting up to and having that energy in the morning. I had a lot of digestive issues as far as like alternating bouts of like constipation, diarrhea. It's crazy. We used to sit in the dining hall and kind of joke. It would be me and like my teammates and a couple other people. Not often, but it would come up like, just how like we would joke that the food from like Sodexo would have laxatives in it. Like that was a thing that they did. So I don't know, I guess it was a thing. And yeah, like just kind of felt off, like brain fog, fatigue were things I never experienced. Digestive issues were things I never experienced. And we just kind of brushed it off as like getting older, which is a preposterous thing to think about looking back now when
you're that young,
20, 19, 20 years old.
Right.
So, but I just kind of accepted it like that's what it was at the time. So goes on through undergrad. I decided to go to chiropractic school, and I kind of bring these health problems that I was having with me.
Mm.
Um, and it wasn't until my second year of chiropractic school, I was taking biochemistry and happened to have a naturopath teach the class. And she just taught it in a way that resonated with me a lot different from when it did in undergrad. And the school I went to happened to have a nutrition program, like a master's program. So I decided to stack that on top of what I was doing, even though for the first, 2 years of chiropractic, I was still having the same health issues. Had mostly the same routine. I'm pretty regimented in that way. And, I started this master's program. I would say going into the second half of it, between doing the weekend courses and everything like that, and on the stuff I was reading, I was really into it. So I started cutting out a lot of, I decided to make myself patient zero for myself and started making some dietary changes, really without changing much else as far as my sleep schedule, my workout schedule, because I wanted to make it as, scientific as you possibly could. I'm like, let's change
Sure.
this one area and kind of go through with it. So I did. Within 2 months, the energy came back, the digestive problems kind of went away. The brain fog lifted, and I would say I never put like a hard date on it, but within like around 6 to 8 months, like the weight I put on just came off. Again, was
Oh.
not calorie counting, was not, using scales or anything like that. I was just kind of changing what was going on the plate, and that was it. And the weight just kind of came off, and that kind of led down this kind of spiral of, okay, chiropractic, because I came out, I wanted to go into sports medicine like exclusively because that was kind of my background.
Mm.
And I get to graduate. I've had kind of this metamorphosis of my own health, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's a little bit more than just doing the structural stuff. Like, let's bring in the
Mhm.
chemical component, you know, and let's start. And then it became just adding more tools. So it got into like, and this is now in practice, got into breath work and iridology and kind of like this whole function, obviously functional medicine's part of that. And it just kind of became this larger suite of things that could offer people. And now this is what, year seven? Seven. So, and again, it's great because for me, I always enjoy learning. I feel like I wake up every day and know less than I do the day before. Partially might be because I'm forgetting some things, but I feel like there's just more to learn. That's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at.
definitely.
So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a hell of a learning journey from
Mhm.
a growth standpoint, from a business standpoint, and yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
Yeah. Well, going back to the dietary changes, what did that look like exactly? Because I know that people will definitely want to know what were the big changes that you made where you saw those things kind of correct themselves without so much effort.
Yeah, for me, I did a few things that were big that made, in my opinion, I think a really big difference. One was I really just stopped eating out. I
Mhm.
shouldn't say stop. I cut it down to like once a week. I was living with a
Yeah.
roommate at the time. So, I kind of tried to abide by the 80-20 type. It was definitely more than that, but
Yeah.
I'd give myself that. The biggest things we're cutting out, I would say gluten, dairy. And dairy for me, this is where people like really look at me like I have seven heads, is like was never an issue for me. Like
Mm.
I never really had a lot of it anyway. It's just like if I was going out and cheese or something was on whatever I was eating, I just
Hmm.
wouldn't omit it. But I
Right.
never like bought it or was big into that. But so be that as it may, cut that out.
Mm.
And I started shifting at the time to have more obviously whole foods, cooking basically everything,
Hmm.
and going actually more a plant-based route, which for me worked really well. So
Hmm.
got almost to a point by the time I graduated that it was like 100%. Again, I was living with a roommate. I made dinner every night, so I didn't want to do that to him, but outside of that, pretty much went that way.
Mm.
And for me, it made a big difference. Yeah,
Well, I mean, that's what's important, is like as long as you're feeling good and seeing those big changes, I think that's huge.
yeah,
And yeah, I used to
yeah.
be a very dogmatic person about diet, and I still have certain things that I definitely recommend and stick to. But I think that getting the processed foods out, getting off of the Uber Eats schedule for most people, those sorts of things are going to be huge, because you don't realize how much people are really eating those things, eating the seed oils all the time. And I think that's one thing we can all agree on, is that the super inflammatory. We've got so much literature to show that the seed oils can make your body more prone to skin, like sunburn. They're correlating it to colon cancer. Like there's so much that it's like, and people are eating this every day. It's just, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, that's actually, you bring up a good point that I omitted, but I'll bring that back up, is I did, again, at the time, again, minus the once a week I was going out to eat, would be, I did shift everything to organic at that point too, which I think goes a really, really long way.
Yeah.
Especially here in America. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had patients come in where, they'll come in and be like, oh, well, I went to France or I went to Italy and I had bread and pizza and pasta and whatever, and I felt great. And then I came back home and drank water and I don't know what happened. So, but that happens a lot. So, I knew about it, but I wasn't that didn't happen for me at a time when that was something that was on my mind. But I've had any number of patients that have come in that have had that experience, and other like health professionals.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, like I know we talk about it, but when you actually experience it, it's like, holy crap. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there's glyphosate, seed oils. There's so many things that our food sources are not what we think that they are. The quote unquote healthy is not what we think it is. And I think that's one place we can all agree, is that those things need to be avoided. And I think most people would feel completely like different if they weren't pounding their bodies with those things, because they're just hard for your body to process, create collagen issues, gut issues. The list goes on and on, right?
That part's wild. And for me, again, like my background coming from more or less like the fitness space first, I mean, kind of, is like, you get in that mindset where like the body's a machine and this is how many calories you have to have every day.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, like, first of all, at best, calories are a very rough measurement. But also, like, counting macros is not that important when you talk about all these other things that are done to your food supply and to pretend that it's nothing.
Yeah.
This is why, you can't look, I think, at not all, but a good chunk of, say, like professional athletes or people in that space, competitive ones, and think that is like what health looks like. Because a lot of it isn't, first of all. Never mind, you get into like steroids and performance-enhancing drugs and all that stuff. But there's a huge disconnect there. And for me, that was a big, like, wake-up call.
If you've been watching the show for a while, you know I'm a diet and lifestyle person first always, but there are a couple of things I add into my daily routine that enhance my energy, my mood, my sleep, and even hormone balance. And one of those at the top of that list is Shilajit. Now, when it comes to Shilajit, there are a lot of brands on the market. I chose Black Lotus Shilajit because they test their products for heavy metals and they're very, very conscientious about their sourcing. They're also a small family-owned business and make sure that they deliver a quality product. Now, I use the Shilajit tablets every single morning, and there are actually a host of studies that show it can help with hormone balance and even reduce things like hot flashes. If you're interested in trying out the Black Lotus Shilajit, go to blacklotusshilajit.com and use code Sarah K for 15% off anything on the entire site. I personally love the tablets. I'm not a big fan of the resin, but you can try either one of those, again, going to the website www.blacklotusshilajit.com and use code Sarah K for 15% off the entire site. Yeah. I mean, a lot of those professional athletes also have people cooking all their meals for them, so it's just not apples to apples comparison. They're just unnatural, extraordinary human beings is not comparable to the everyday person. And I think the thing I see a lot of people that are kind of in the fitness space, and even women my age, like in their 40s, who are trying to lose weight, there's this big, and I would love to get your take on this since you have more of a plant-based background. And I'm like an ex-carnivore. I used to do carnivore diet. I don't anymore. I really don't. I do eat seasonal local plants, foods. I mean, was just works better for me. My body is so much better. I'm less inflamed. Like I'm leaner than I've been since high school. Like, so it's working for me to not do full carnivore. But there's this huge fad right now of protein, women my age. And I think that, we need to have a certain amount of protein. But what I'm seeing is the protein powders just nonstop, like in your drinks, in your coffee, in your yogurt, in your cottage cheese, pancakes, brownies, protein powder, everything. And I'm like, ooh, stop, please. But I would love your viewpoint on this kind of protein fad thing.
I mean, it's crazy. I've never been like a huge fan of high protein in that way. And there's a few reasons for it. I mean, the big one, and this is always an interesting one. Again, I don't stay in like the diet wars or talk about them, but like when you see patterns, you have to talk about it. And it's very clear that, and because this will relate to where I'm going with this, is like when you go either like really low carbohydrate for a very long period of time, there's a reason those are the people who are selling you electrolyte powders. Like you're just not going to get it from the sources.
You're going to lose minerals. Yeah.
Right. So, you have to at least be honest with it or, say like, oh, this is the best, but here's my list of 10 supplements you need to make this work. And it's like, well, then what is that? And that's the difference, I think, between working with someone in a one-on-one context versus following an influencer online, because that is a huge disconnect. Because I mean, as it is online, the more extreme you are, that sells, for better or worse. That's what it is.
Right.
So that's part of it. But the reason I think that's important is the protein part. Is it comes back to kidney health, which almost no one talks about online, and it's kind of like weird because kidney disease is a top 10 killer worldwide and has been for as long as I can remember. And doing too much protein for a long period of time is going to tax your kidneys, period. And we do know there are correlations with not only heart disease, but also diabetes with poor kidney function. Never mind the gout, electrolyte issues, adrenal issues that come along with that. Because again, your adrenals are going to react based on the filter that is the kidneys, right? So that's why they're right there. It's effectively kind of a sensor type thing. So that is a thing that like I'd never heard a good argument for, like, because it's to me, from what I've seen, very clear that doing that for a very long period of time is going to damage your kidneys. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. I mean, some of the carnivore doctors that I follow say it's bunk, and they have their kind of like list of studies to back that up. So there's always, when you're in that community, you can always find a doctor who's like, nope, here's this study, this study, this study, this study. But then on the other side, when you're on the other end of the spectrum, you can find equal amount of studies to say opposite. So it's tough. I gotta be what's happening to the individual. And for me, when I did carnivore, I had my YouTube channel, and I actually just took down all my carnivore videos like a few weeks ago, just because they were still getting comments of people like asking questions and like assuming I was still doing the diet. And I was like, I gotta take all these down. It's probably gonna tank my YouTube channel even more, because I never really built my YouTube channel with the like what I eat in a day videos and like come follow me around for a day, because I'm too tired for that.
That seems exhausting. I just never was. I can't do it.
I love sharing information with people. And so I love the people that are still here with me after all these years that listen to to long form conversations. And I'll do short form videos, but I don't have the energy for like all right, let's do a diary type of thing.
Right.
But when I did have the carnivore videos and I did one about my labs and I had all my labs done and I sat with a doctor who was like carnivore doctor and he went over my labs with me. I didn't know anything about labs at that time. This was like 2020, and I hadn't really started studying functional blood chemistry the way that I know it now. 5 years later, I know it really well.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know what to look for or not. And my GFR was like a 60. And he was just like, oh, I was like, that looks out of range. Is that a problem? Oh, no, that's not a problem.
That's a problem.
Go for it. Do you know the vegans came for me so bad I had to like take that video down.
Oh no.
The vegans came for me after that video. And then they scared me. They actually like really, really scared me. And so I went to see a kidney doctor. I did all this stuff. And it happened to be that I was very dehydrated. Surprise, surprise. I'd been carnivore for a year. I was very dehydrated when I got those labs drawn. And so I was able to electrolytes and minerals and all the things, and get the GFR back to like a 90. But again, I was kind of being told, and it was a very embarrassing public way to find out that maybe this diet isn't as perfect as everyone says it is, you know?
Right.
And what was even scarier is that when I did come out on my channel and say, hey, I had to fix my GFR. This is what I did. Here's my mineral protocol. My comments were just like flooded with people having kidney problems, flooded with people having dehydration and mineral problems, flooded. And it's so wild because the other carnivore doctors and influencers, they just want to just brush that stuff under the rug or make me look I'm crazy and I'm saying something that's not true. I'm just literally sharing my labs, which I should probably not do that online anyway. But it's a valid thing to think. We have studies over here that say yes. But we also have studies over from the carnivore low carb people that say absolutely not. It's bunk. It's been debunked. But
my experience, at least clinically, says that it's very clear.
Yeah.
For what it's worth. And I will also say, you have to remember, like any sort of the problem with kidney disease and even like adrenal dysfunction, like you could have up to like 90% adrenal dysfunction and be asymptomatic. So we have to remember, like one of the biggest lies is like, unless you're symptomatic, you are healthy is fundamentally not true. Like
not true at all. Not true at all.
You could ask anyone who's ever had a cancer diagnosis. They feel fine. For the most part, like barring few exceptions until they have to go through treatment or anything like that.
Right.
So, you have to remember that. And the other thing with the kidney part is, there are very clear, obvious ties to heart disease and diabetes, which are even higher on the list in terms of cause of death. Right. So, all these things are related. And I think that's another kind of issue I have with functional medicine as a whole is like, it's very easy to do the same thing in the allopathic model, which is be super reductionistic about it and pretend, oh, this is one problem. We're looking at one system and not take the whole person into account here.
Right.
Like I'll give you a story. Like I had a patient who came in a couple months ago who had a 60 GFR and it turns out he had one kidney. So is that bad for him? No, it's not. He's got, so you know what I mean? So like, you don't know that unless you take that context into account. So there's that part of it. So at the end of the day, like it's ultimately going to come down to, like you were saying, like you have to have someone who's like open and honest about it and will have that type of conversation with you and give you the context. The problem with that is I think a lot of people who go into functional medicine, one, are either already medically trained to some degree, and even my chiropractic school was more of a medical flavor to it. So that's kind of what you're taught. Like this is what diagnosis is, this is what you do, that type of kind of algorithm model. versus looking at the person first. And that is much more artistic than scientific,
Yeah,
even
it
though,
is.
and I think that's the part that's lost a lot of times is like,
It is.
having a regimen for something in an extreme life or death situation will save your life,
Hmm.
but saving your life and being healthy are not the same thing.
Right.
So that's the part where, the arts have been taken out of medicine. And to be quite honest with you, I think a lot of functional medicine practitioners too, whether they want to admit that or not is another story. And, having the art or learning the art of doing that and working with people who are not in, again, those like severe life or death, I'm going to die in an hour if nothing's done type of
Right.
scenario, and
Right.
and the more just traditional, mostly chronic conditions that most people deal with, if we're being honest.
This last year, I've definitely noticed some signs of aging as I am 46 in June, and I'm always looking for natural, holistic ways to support my body. I've been a big fan of red light therapy for many years now, and recently started using the Bon Charge face mask to help my body produce its own collagen. Now, here's the thing that differentiates Bon Charge face mask from the rest of the ones on the market. It has specific wavelengths that are actually meant to target the skin and collagen production. It has been shown to reduce fine lines and wrinkles, and it is low EMF. So it's very safe to use. When you're actually going to have a device on your head, you want to make sure it is the lowest EMF possible. I have tested this with my own EMF meter and believe it is safe and recommend it to clients. So if you're interested in checking out the Bon Charge face mask, I have a special discount for podcast listeners. You can go to boncharge.com and use the code Sarah Kleiner, all one word, for 15% off site wide. I really love the Bon Charge red light face mask. And if you're looking for more natural ways to support your body in this age and stage of life, I recommend checking it out. Go to boncharge.com and use the code Sarah Kleiner, all one word, to save 15%. When you look at chronic diseases people are dying from, heart disease is still up there at the top of the list as well. And
Yeah.
I still don't feel like we understand heart disease at all. Allopathy doesn't at all, but I don't think
No.
functional medicine does either, because I feel like it's not always just the heart. I think someone's heart could be completely fine, but maybe they have calcification, and if
Right.
you have calcification in one part of the body, it's in the other parts of the body, but their heart might be completely fine,
Right.
but because they have the calcification, we're going to put them on statins. We're going to do, I've even seen functional medicine doctors do this. And I just don't think that there's a lot of understanding of what each individual needs, and then you might have a carnivore doctor or a more animal-based doctor say, eat as much meat as you want, it's fine. Or go on a vegan diet. Like, I feel like it has to be individualized to the person, yeah.
It does. Like it does. Even then though, like, again, this is where like the online thing is just not a mirror for real life, because
Mm-mm.
at least when I deal with most people that I work with, like that is so far extreme from where most people are at anyway. Like, how about
Yeah.
like let's start with like the easy, not even easy stuff, but stuff that I think is going to be more impactful. Like, okay, you're eating out 5 days a week. How do we get that down to twice? Like basic
Right.
things. Like those are
Yeah.
actually the things that are going to move you in the right direction a
Yeah.
lot more than what you add in. And I think that's the thing that most people either don't, maybe not even make clear. It's much harder to take the stuff out that's poisoning you than to add in the good stuff. And that's,
Yeah.
it's much easier to tell someone to take a supplement or herb or whatever than tell them, hey, no, you actually have to stop doing what you're doing.
Right.
But the truth
Yeah.
of the matter is that the subtraction in that equation is going to amount to a lot more significant increase in health than whatever you're adding in.
Yeah.
And that's like an American problem, I think, more than anything, because we are conditioned by pharmaceutical ads every time you turn on the TV. Oh, I'm going to take this pill.
You
Doesn't
take
matter if
this.
it's a supplement or herb or whatever. It's going to fix my problem. even though I'm very clear with how I explain that to people, I know it takes more than one repetition seeing someone for that to kind of kick in.
And I'm getting into it now with women and HRT in this age. And it's like working with
Oh
different
boy.
clients that they don't have the lifestyle stuff down. Their blood sugar's already a mess. Their mitochondria need support. Their circadian rhythms are off. And then they want to try HRT because they saw an influencer saying that their estrogen was low and that's why they're gaining all this weight. And then they try it and it's a disaster. They end up
Yeah.
gaining and feeling worse. And now they can't sleep. And they're like, I thought this hormone was supposed to do it all for me. And it's just the mindset of people, unfortunately, because I think it's not, I'm not even going to blame people. It's just a conditioning. If
It is.
you've been walking around and just living and looking at anything mainstream or even alternative, it's like you need to take something to fix yourself.
Yeah. I mean, this is something over, the 7 years I've been practicing is I try to make this crystal clear. And again, people are going to take this with varying degrees of success because that's just, everyone's different. So is like, when I recommend usually herbs to people, I'm like, look, like all these are doing is supporting what you're already doing. They are not going to fix your problem outright if you continue to do the same thing tomorrow that you were doing yesterday. Like that stuff's got to start to change. With the hormone stuff, though, it's becoming wild. And with men, it's the same thing, right?
Oh yeah, the testosterone. Yeah.
Right. It's, and to me, like it comes down to such like a fundamental concept that gets, I don't even want to say overlooked at this point, but not given the seriousness that it deserves, which is, your nervous system at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because whether it's estrogen or testosterone, we could go either way with this, like those only get made if you're in a rest, digest, repair state. So
Right.
if your sleep is crap and you're going to sleep at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., I mean, that's not, you have to fix that first, or
Right.
else, no amount of estrogen is going to help you or testosterone or whatever.
No.
Yeah, you might get, and what usually people do, they feel better for like 2 to 3 months, maybe. And then they either plateau or start feeling worse. And that's
Right.
generally the trend that I see for most people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I liken it to pouring water into a leaky bucket.
Perfect.
And if your blood sugar is spiking all the time, that can create pregnant-alone steel. So guess what? Those hormones, they get converted to cortisol because your body thinks you need to run from a damn bear, even though maybe it's just you checking your phone too much and
being up at 1 a.m. or whatever. And again, we don't think these things are stressful, but they're not normal. Like I think and there's another thing that sometimes I get, and some people don't like when I tell them this, but it's like, night owls are not real. They did not exist 100 years ago. This is just a made up concept. I don't know, in
Matthew
the last
Walker,
70 years, whatever.
Thing, it's like, no,
like it's
been
very
like one
clear.
or two people in the tribe that had to stay awake for the others, but no.
And even then, I'm sure when that happened, it was a rotation. It wasn't the same guy up every night all the time.
No.
You know what I mean? So
exactly.
it to me, it's very clear from what I've seen in the research, like being in bed between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. and you can play around with the extremities on that is like you need to do it if you want to get better.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to. That's the first thing you have to do is sleep. I think everybody can agree on the simple things of like, if you're not sleeping, you're not going to heal. You're not going to detox. You can do parasite cleansing and, gut cleanses and all this other stuff. But if you're not sleeping, like you're wasting money. It's not going to work.
No, yeah, you have to fix that first. And I mean, look, maybe it's just a product of I live in New York City, so you're going to get a lot of them, a lot of night owls.
Oh yeah,
it's that too, the outside light and everything. Like I think it's a huge problem, and I get a lot of resistance on it.
Yeah, I know. Send them to me. I mean, I live in a city too. I live in Atlanta, so it's not quite New York City, but I've got blackout curtains. I've got I have an eye mask. I have to do a lot to protect myself and my kids from the artificial light because it's not. When we first moved in here, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. We've got neighbors everywhere. Then we had this other neighbor that moved in who that's a whole other story. He like he's just he's a horrible, horrible neighbor. Horrible. He plays music and has wild
Oh
parties
no.
until 11 o'clock on Sunday nights, which he cuts it off at 11 because he knows the cops are waiting, and that's the curfew. But it's like there's so much you have to do if you live in a city to just get quiet and darkness. But those two things are so crucial if you want to keep your health.
I know. Yeah, it's again, it comes back to like the basic fundamentals, and for me, like sleep. Some people will argue like exercise is a big one, but I think most people like if they know they're not like, I'm not going to get like a lot of resistance on that. Like, oh yeah, I know I should do it. Like, yeah, you should. Uh,
I had a
but the sleep
trainer
one's a bigger
once.
one.
It is. Well, I had a trainer once and he would, I mean, I have an autistic daughter, so my sleep sometimes can be a crapshoot. And then I decided to have another baby. So I have a 2-year-old. So it's like, when people are like, I can't sleep, I'm like, yeah, at least you don't have 2 alarm clocks that randomly go off in the middle of the night. Um, but he would send me home from training. Rob Jacobs, he's been on my podcast a few times, but he would literally send me home from the gym if I had one of those nights where I was up with my daughter the whole night. He's like, no, we're not training today. Like, I'm not.
Wow.
Yeah, he would send me home. He's like, I won't charge you for the
That's
session.
a very forward-thinking trainer.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was one of God, what's his name? The guy that passed away a few years ago. I can't remember his name now, but he was one of his like top world trainers. So he really knew his stuff when it comes to like neurochemistry, the brain, uh, muscle building, recovery, all that stuff. Like it's what he did. So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's good. It's hard to find good people. I'm glad you found a good trainer because that's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. It is because most people are just going to say, "Oh, get up and do your high intensity interval training or your 6-mile jog, and you've got to get your movement in." And that's one thing I see with women in this age, perimenopause. It's like you do not need to be going to the gym at 5 in the morning or doing an hour of cardio if you're not sleeping
Right.
and you're stressed out and you're up at night drinking wine. Like it's just creating more and more for your body to deal with, more inflammation. It's very
Yeah.
counterproductive.
Yeah. It's to me like that part is such a crucial part, and it goes back to I think like what you're alluding to is like what you're doing the day before. Like
Right.
that's to set you up for the next day. So
Right.
yeah, I think that's the biggest one that I see people like really struggle with. And again,
Mm.
sure, exercise is one, but like to me, sleep's more important to get
Yeah.
right first. And I think to be frank, like it's probably the harder one to fix for most people. At least will take
It
more
is.
time.
Yeah, it can. It definitely can because so many things just beyond light impact your sleep. If you're on
Hmm.
your phone, if you have a bad conversation with your spouse, if you get in a fight with one of your kids, like there's just emotional stuff that can keep you awake. You got a evil neighbor. Like that was my issue last night. It's like I want to go to sleep, but I'm in my bed and my bed is vibrating from the bass in his backyard. And
Oh my
so I'm angry. And I was like, the anger was keeping me awake more than the bass. And so we have emotional things that keep us awake, eating too close to bed. I mean, there's a lot of things. So you really do have to be conscientious of the whole picture if you want to fix your sleep.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say like are the things that you have told your clients that have been most helpful as far as getting some sort of regular sleep pattern down?
I think it starts in the morning. I think it
Mm,
starts with like not looking at your phone when you wake up and not turning on a bunch of overhead lights, just literally going right outside and getting all of the neurotransmitters, neurohormones, all those things going in the morning, resetting those clocks and having that really strong anchor in the morning, eating food, and then just being strict about your evening routine. Like you can't
yeah.
stay up and watch Netflix till 11 o'clock at night. Like if I have my people who are super addicted to TV, I'm like, okay, then stop watching TV at 7 p.m. Like maybe start at 4 p.m. I really don't like you sitting in front of the TV, but okay, if you have to have your TV time, start watching TV at 4, turn it off at 7,
Right.
and then separate from it. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have to give them like a less than. I had one client who was sleeping in her recliner every night and she would just sit in front of the TV and stay in her recliner till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, with the simple things, we have to just get you out of that environment. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I will. I mean, obviously everyone's going to have a different schedule in the morning just based on,
yes, kid.
work or life responsibilities, whatever. But like, I'm curious, like, what are your philosophies on do you vary your wake up times based on, where you are in the year, or are you pretty
Hmm.
set?
I
So you
do.
do.
I do. I've got my app, my circadian app, and it'll give me
Yeah.
a little notification when it's daybreak and when it's sunrise. And so right now, daybreak sunrise is like 7. And so
Yeah.
that's reasonable. I'm in Atlanta too, so I'm not when you go
It's
up to
not
like
as variable as me in New York. Yeah.
yeah, New York and Canada, I mean those sunrises can get crazy early. But for me it's not unreasonable because summer the earliest that sunrise is really is like 6:30, and
Oh,
then winter,
wow.
yeah, that's the earliest I get. And so for me that's totally reasonable to be up at sunrise and my kids are sleeping, so I get that quiet alone time. And then winter the latest that sun comes up is 8 a.m. So
Right.
and our kids are, we have their schedules pretty flexible. So we all sleep in the winter till 8 usually. And I'm up at 6:30 in summer. So it does vary based on time of year. We all go to bed early in the winter because the lights are out and we just have to
Right.
have this very circadian dialed in. So we'll all go to bed at like 7:38 in the winter. Summer is a little bit later, 9, 10. But yeah, we do vary. And I have the exceptions really in my leptin course for people who live in like Canada. And I didn't know how many people in Sweden and Norway were going to be interested in this work when I first started it. So I had to
I
learn a
guess it makes
lot.
sense though. Yeah. Yeah.
I had to learn a lot about those areas, honestly. And the incidences of mental health disorders are crazy in those countries, like
Yeah. We
crazy.
get it up here in the Northeast too.
I bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
just all
amazing. There is no seasonal
like,
affective disorder in Florida. It's amazing.
oh yeah, no, I know, right? Yeah, it's the variance in the northern. I think it was. I feel like I found this map and I found this study a long time ago, and it was basically showing incidences of like bipolar mania, schizophrenia, the further north that you went, as well as autoimmune conditions, multiple sclerosis. The further
Yeah.
north you went, the more of those that you saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to it for
It's
sure.
interesting. I know a lot of people will do the thing where they'll say, like, oh, it's because it's better diagnosis, because especially in my neck of the woods, like the Northeast, whether it's Massachusetts or here, it's like, oh, we do have better diagnostic tools and this and that and whatever. But
No.
I mean, it's at a rate that is like incredibly ridiculous to make that claim.
Yeah.
But here we are. It still happens for a lot of different things here. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's so multifaceted too. I mean, I think
I
it's the
know.
food, it's the light, it's the environment, like whatever is out in the air. Like
Yeah,
we
I
we want a
know.
magic bullet, but it's just there's so many factors that go into these things, I think.
It is. Well, that's the thing. And I think like this is where like online and this is again me as a professional, but even if you're not, like if you're just a lay person who is interested in health, like you just have to be so much better at discernment now than ever before. And
Mhm.
there's like a weird ironic twist, like with this rise in AI that is going to do all your thinking for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like what is research now compared to what it was, and where that's going. And my
Right.
mom still teaches at NYU dental school, and so we've had conversations about like how that's changed. Like and even, I mean, there it's postgraduate education and like how that plays a role in that. So like to me, like as things get easier to access,
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to want to make the shortcut and take the shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, again, I have a 10-month-old. Like, what is that going to look like 5 years from now?
I know. I know.
So, and then like, how do you educate on that? Because the
Right.
truth is, I'm learning about it in real time. So, I mean, I have some like ideological theories as far as what I would do and how I use it. But like, as far as like, am I an expert on it? No. Am I going to be an expert on it? Probably not.
Right.
Just because there's only so many hours in the day. But,
Right.
you keep up on what you can and kind of do that. But it goes back to this health part because like, when I see, you could get Amazon Health Services for $9 a month or whatever they're doing now. Like
Yeah.
it's like in some sense, it's you get what you pay for, but in the other
Yeah.
side, it's you just have to discern it and treat it almost like if you're a customer for something else. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
like if I had the check engine light go on in my car, do you shop around for a mechanic or are you just going to go to the first guy you see? I mean, I don't know. People
Right.
have different philosophies on that, but
Yeah.
if you have options, generally you go off recommendations usually. So
Yeah.
it's that part. I think it gets a lot harder,
It
and you
does.
just have to treat it almost as like you would treat any other major purchase. I think that you're going to make in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the conversation changes a little bit when you do have a kid because you're like, oh, wait a minute. Because there's so much online that's like, no antibiotics ever, no medications ever for children. And it's like, I feel like we need to have a little nuance with some of these topics about kids because you could potentially run into a dangerous situation. And I think there's another thing that's going on as well. And I fell into that trap is that if you don't do any sort of vaccines or interventions for your child, then you won't have any issues with them. And I'm seeing in the community that that's not true 100%. So I'd love to
No,
get
of
your take
course
on
not.
this.
It's
Yeah.
never, again, it goes back to it's never one thing. And I think that
Right.
brings into like another deeper question that almost never gets asked, which is the health of the parents prior to conception and during.
Right. Right.
Or like even if you want to be even more recent towards a birth, like talk about like what Pitocin can do and epidurals and stuff like that and
Mm.
pretend that doesn't play a role when it's pretty clear it does.
Yeah.
And again, are those things necessary in certain situations? Yes, of course they are. But like like there's no reason C-section rates should be 40% when statistically they should be like 5, if that.
Right. Right.
So, like those things also matter. And that's irrespective of, if we talk about vaccines or not. But those are things that get pushed under the rug because
Mhm.
again, it's very easy to get super reductionistic and pick the one thing, even though technically vaccines aren't one thing, it's a lot of things over time.
A lot of things. Yeah.
But all of that is a role is going to play a role. And again, you can't really like separate those in studies really because chances are if one of those things happen, you're going to do the other things that go along with it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
never mind now, just try to do any study on pregnant women, it's not going to happen. So,
No.
because no one
No.
wants to be the one responsible for something happening to a
Right.
pregnant woman. So, and
Right.
again, I get it. Like that's a valid reason, but it's just not going to happen. So,
Mm-mm.
you know, that's the part where again, you have to use discernment and you have to I think at the end of the day, like really where we're going with this is like there has to be like a level of self-responsibility, one.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
two, like really taking that on yourself. Because if you
Yes.
bring in the antibiotic example, like it's already, I mean, it's very obvious that like over half of antibiotic prescriptions is are overprescribed. We also know
Yeah.
antibiotics do nothing for ear infections because they're not bacterial anyway. So if
Right.
there's a doctor giving you an antibiotic for an ear infection, it will do nothing.
Yeah.
Like any positive experience you get from that is placebo.
Mm.
So we have to, that there is truth to that. And again, are there potentials where antibiotics could save lives? Yes. That number is probably incredibly lower than we think. But again, there's so many other factors that go along with that. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the
Yeah.
part of it. Like that's one thing I really try to hold myself accountable to, and I really, really try to be the example because like, look, to me, like if I try to put myself in the situation of my patients to be like, look, if this was me in this person's situation, what would I do?
Yeah.
And I have to be honest to that. So like I have to live it. So I can't be up until midnight every night and then tell people to go to sleep at 10 o'clock. Like to me,
Mm-mm.
that's just not congruent.
Mm-mm.
So I have to live it. Like I have to go to bed by 9:30 every night. And I do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I have to have some sort of exercise regimen because I can't tell someone else to do that. Like I have to choose the organic foods and not pick the seed oils and choose where I'm going out. And because if I don't tell people that, then well, if I don't do it, one, irrespective of credentials, like to me, that just doesn't feel right.
Right.
And then the second part is like, I want to live a fairly long and healthy life. Like
Right.
I
Right.
see a lot of people who are in like my parents' age bracket who don't look so hot,
No.
in their 60s.
Same. Yeah.
And that's not who I want to be. I still want to be able to play sports and basketball and all this and run around and not be in pain.
Yeah.
So, and all of that is dictated by decisions I make right now. That's just
Wow.
not, and some people are willing to make that trade-off. And if they are willing to do that, God bless you. Like that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But it starts with like that awareness, I think, and responsibility more than anything else.
It does. 100%. Yeah. I mean, and that's what I think a lot of people that listen to the podcast are thinking that way, forward thinking like me. It's like now that I'm going to be 46 in June, I'm like, yeah, I want to look nice. I want to look good. Sure. But I also am thinking forward to being in my 50s. Like that's a real thing that's right around the corner. And then in my 60s and then my 70s, it's not super far away. And I don't want to wake up in pain every day. I don't want to, like the people who bought this house that we bought, it's beautiful, is a couple. They custom built it from the ground up. They put in details on everything. When they were selling it to us, she was crying. She's like, this was a tree I planted in memory of my brother. And she just did
Oh.
so much detail. Why did they have to move? Well, this house has like so many freaking stairs, like 4 flights of stairs. I got in shape really more so when I moved in here. So I'm like going up and down the stairs like 100 times a day. Well, she had to leave the house because she got into her 60s and could no longer live in this house because of the stairs. And it was
Wow.
painful for her to live here. And it was just
Yeah.
it was heartbreaking because this was her dream house. Again, she handpicked everything, it's custom, everything beautiful. I'm actually glad she moved before like Satan moved in 2 doors down and ruined everything for the rest of us. But you know, that's just an example of like you have this whole life and everything you want built up, and then you get to the place where you're retired and it's your dream home and you can't live in it because it's too painful. You can't walk up and down the stairs. So
I know.
yeah, we all want to look good, but if you can't walk up and down the stairs, who cares how you look, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's just like a mindset shift. And again, that goes against most of the things you're going to see on TV when you're driving to work,
Right.
on billboards, on the radio, whatever. That's not what's sold. So it
Right.
really takes, like, for lack of a better term, like being some sort of like a black sheep, even if you want to be like a remotely healthy person in America.
Yeah, you do. You really do. It's
Yeah,
wild. Yeah, I think it's worth it though. And that's why I
it is
continue
worth
to
it.
bring people like you on and have these sorts of conversations because it can be very lonely. And I think people sometimes just need people like us in their ear to encourage them to continue to walk the path and stay on course and don't get Uber Eats every day and stay up and watch Netflix and drink wine every night because it's not gonna
Right.
you
But you
know.
know what? Like, I mean, obviously you live in an area that has some sort of density when it comes to population. Like,
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
take it like, have you been able to like make some sort of connections with people who, maybe you don't agree with 100%, but have some sort of like health focus in their lives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some. I mean, I'm pretty isolated here with my daughter with special needs. Like I don't really go
Hmm.
out in the community as much, but um yeah, I mean, there's certain people that we do have similar health focuses that, we don't agree on everything. I don't agree with anybody on everything,
No,
anything.
of course not.
It's impossible.
It is. It is impossible.
I had somebody
It's
commenting on
100%
my
impossible.
Spotify, which, like, by the way, why did Spotify turn on comments? I don't need comments anywhere else. I have too many. I'm like, Spotify, why did you do that to me? And I can't turn them off. And so I went through some of the Spotify comments recently, and someone was very upset that I had a doctor on, and they were like, and I went to his Instagram page, and the first thing he was doing was talking about vitamin D supplements. How could you have him on? And I'm like, well, because there's nobody that I could ever interview, even my closest friends that are in the space with me, that I would agree with on everything. It just doesn't exist. So I
Yeah.
found some of the things that he talks about, what he stands for, to be compelling enough to have a show about it. So
Yeah. And even then, like, I mean, the vitamin D thing, that is a very tiny group. Like, I know I'm in the as you are, like in the vast minority, even in our own space, as far as vitamin D supplements.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and to me, like the logic is very clear. Like, if you take a hormone, you are going to impact your ability to make said hormone. Vitamin D
correct.
just so happens to be a hormone. Now, obviously, there's a little bit more detail we go into if we wanted to, but it's the
Right.
same logic. It's the same thing for TRT or
Yes.
estrogen. Like, it fits in that same bucket.
Yeah.
So, when people ask me about it, I'd be like, look, usually the way I bring it up is like, look, how much do you spend on a vitamin D supplement? Okay, you spend, I don't know, $30, $40 a month, whatever it is. I'm like, and so I asked them, like, would you consider looking into, like a Spurdy lamp or something? Yes, it's a
Mhm.
$500 upfront cost, but
Yeah.
you buy it once.
Right.
And, that could get you, if you're not going to be outside a lot from November to April in New York, you have something that you could use for a few minutes a day, a few times a week,
Yeah.
and it'll last you your whole life. So
Yeah.
I at least try to give them the option. Now, if it was me personally, obviously that's what I would do. But,
Right.
you have to, again, that's like cutting edge even in this group as far as
It
like
is.
seeing that.
It
And
is.
now, like, that's very clear because we're seeing this rise of estrogen replacement, TRT. Like, it's only a matter of 5 years or so before we start seeing the
The
fallout of that.
backlash.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Because I mean,
So,
that's a whole other conversation of I know there's some other experts out there that I can get to come on and talk about it, that are level headed. There's some people out there that are just too crazy and insane. I don't want to bring them on my podcast, but like no, they've been recommended to me. I'm like, no, they're too mean and extreme. And I just don't like that sort of rhetoric. But I think a
right.
nuanced conversation about estrogen, period, is needed right now, is very, very much needed for my ladies and the people that come to listen to this sort of thing, because it's being sold as this cure all for weight loss and sleep. And not to say that it doesn't help people, but there's a context around it, I think, that needs to be addressed
Yeah,
extensively. Yeah.
for sure. And again, it just leads, in my experience, to dependency, like one way or
Right.
another. So,
Right. Yeah.
you have to be like really judicial with that,
Mhm.
or it's going to become like a lifetime thing if you don't make
Yeah.
plans to work off of it. And that's the
Yeah.
part that's really hard and from what I could tell, not made clear to people.
No, my grandmother, she died when she was 97, I think. She was
Wow.
still on estrogen when
Yeah.
she died. And
Wow.
she's like, you're not going to take these hormones from me. I'm taking them till I die. Like,
Yeah.
all right, grandma, cool.
Yeah.
Not going to take your hormones from you. But yeah, that's what my mom, my mom was like, Annabelle was not going to have anybody take her hormones. I'm like, okay, that's what she wanted to do. Didn't cause her any cancer or anything like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, she was at that. She's like, nope, I'm never coming off of these. So I think that once people understand, like once you start on these, you are shutting down your body's process of them.
Right.
They don't get informed consent. That's my biggest issue, is the lack of informed consent around these topics.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, I agree with you. The the part where I get like caught up with it, not even caught up, it's just like, what is the solution? Because well, the solution is a radical change to how insurance works in the United States. I get that. I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend that's not a role, because we pay more into healthcare than any other country in the world, yet have the worst health of any Western or industrialized country in the world. Like, that
Right.
math doesn't add up.
Mm-mm.
I don't care which way you want to slice that.
Right.
So, you know, and obviously that feeds into, the average visit being 8 minutes. And, you try talking to someone for 8 minutes and give them informed consent. So,
Right.
you know
No.
what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen. So
No.
it's hard. Again, this is where, like, I think a better way to look at this stuff is to, as a consumer, like if you were going to buy anything else, if you were going to buy a car, you're just going to take the car salesman's word for it. Like, oh yeah, that's the price.
Right.
You're not going to go to the other dealership down the block or whatever. Like,
Right.
or find the other mechanic, as the example I used before. Like, these are going to be things that are going to have to happen if you want to see any reform, like on that higher level. Because if you're just going to keep feeding into the system, guess what? The system's going to bankrupt the country. So, I mean,
Exactly.
well, that's another story for another day. But
Yeah, I know, right?
either way, yeah. But I mean, that's the route it's on. It's been that way since I remember learning about it when I was in college over a decade ago. So, and it seems to
Yeah.
be only getting worse, not better.
Yeah.
So, but it can change. I'm not here to like sit here and say like everything's negative and
Doom and
not. That's
gloom.
not how it is. It's just the only way you make positive change is by being aware. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth of the matter is, like, all of this changes very quickly, like once people just say no
Mm-hmm.
and start to do it on their own. Now that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of hardwired programming that needs to change, but it's not undoable. Like, there's clearly a lot
Right.
of people who already kind of see that. It's
Yep.
just a question of like, what is that? What's the term for it? It's it's mass something. Basically, like if you have to reach like a certain threshold of people, and
Critical
then once you
mass.
get to that point, like it's just
Yeah.
gonna surge like a tidal
Built
wave,
it.
effectively. I think
Yeah.
it's like, but it's a small number. I think it's like 3 to 5% of people. Like,
Wow.
it's not as high a number as you would think.
Wow. Well, it's possible then, we
Yeah.
keep on having conversations like this. And I think what I'm taking from what you said, and maybe a good place to just round out the whole conversation, is that you do, as a consumer, when maybe your doctor says you need a statin or you need certain medication, you have to look at the full picture, do your own research, which is it's so hilarious that that's now like a quote unquote political thing that people say now. It's like a political. I'm so over it. I'm not anybody's political servant. I'm just like, I just want to have a brain. Okay.
Well, that's
I'm
a good
just,
way to lose it, is getting into politics.
that is a great
That's
way to lose your autonomy, your brain,
yeah,
your common sense. All of it is to get into politics. But
yeah,
um, to maybe do the research on that. Maybe talk to some people. Maybe talk to some other people. Talk about maybe some alternatives, or maybe you do decide at the end of the day that that's the right thing for you. But at least you gathered as much information as possible before you decided to take that intervention. And I think that's what is missing in our people with health challenges. They just are like, oh, the doctor says I need this. I'm going to just take it. End of
yeah,
story. You know?
yeah. And that I get it, because when you're scared or you don't know, you're going to default to
Mhm.
the short, the easiest route.
Yeah.
So it's just, like you said, it's education, it's being aware, and if those are weak spots for you, then find ideally a group of people who are in
Yeah.
a similar place where you can get good information and find resources that can be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And don't get caught in groupthink in those places either, because there's a lot of
Correct.
crazy ass echo chambers online too. And you have to be not caught in those either. You still need to keep your individual autonomy, thinking, common sense. Don't use
Absolutely.
common sense because of the what's it called? The cult.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of
100%.
those out there. Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Well, this has been super awesome. If people want to follow you, work with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Okay, so to find me, mostly on Instagram, sometimes on YouTube, although not much, but there's a channel. It's just at Dr. Vincent Esposito. My website is insideouthealthwellness.com, and that's where most of the links for everything are. So yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure that all of that is linked down the show notes for everybody. And yeah, it's been fun. Lots of thought-provoking things for people to go home with. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. Just a quick little reminder, this is not medical advice nor meant to be taken as a substitute for working one-on-one with a healthcare practitioner. And if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple or Spotify to leave the show up to a 5-star review. If you're over on YouTube, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. I really appreciate you for being here, for listening to the show, and your support means the world to me as I continue to try to pull guests from around the world to bring you informative content to empower you to make decisions about your own health. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.